I wanted to begin the Metropolitan Transit Commission November 15th meeting and call it to order. It is a little bit beyond 3:30, and if you notice, the table setting is a little bit different because following this meeting, there is another meeting, CARPO will be, and so I think that we're trying to make sure there's enough space for everyone to participate, and it doesn't feel quite the same as it usually is, but that's okay. So I just want to go through a couple of items of note. First is that, at the last MTC meeting, the members requested governance review that was completed by UNC Charlotte in 2004 that made recommendations for amendments to the original interlocal agreement and the minutes from that discussion, and I wanted to make sure everybody was aware that that's enclosed in the materials that were sent to you. If there's any discrepancy from that, please let the staff know so that we can make sure everybody has that information. And I want to say that we do not have on the agenda the discussion of the MTC interlocal agreement because there was a recommendation that we have the attorneys meet first to describe how this would proceed, and their first meeting is Thursday, November the 16th, and we are Wednesday, November the 15th. So with that, I'm going to call the meeting to order and say thank you to everyone that is joining us, watching us, whether it's on our streaming platforms or not. We're really glad to see everyone that's participating and learning what we're doing in this meeting. So we'll get started with introductions by the voting members, and we'll start with Mr. Knox.
Rusty Knox, Mayor of Davidson.
And I'm Woody Washam, Mayor of Cornelius.
Other voting members?
I guess that's me today, Brian Welch, Town of Mint Hill.
Lee Altman, County Commissioner serving at large. Sorry.
Mayor's here somewhere.
I'm sorry. Mayor Edwards, he is going to be here at some point. I understand he's already in the building. It's just he will be here soon. All right, so.
John Higdon, Mayor Matthews.
Vi Lyles, City of Charlotte. All right, so now that we have the voting members, our alternates, if you would introduce yourselves.
Andrew Grant, Town Manager for Cornelius.
Any other alternates?
Ryan Spitzer, Town Manager of Pineville.
Ann?
Renee Garner, Town of Matthews.
All right. Okay. Any other alternates? All right, so.
Jack Edwards, Pineville.
I think we've already counted you in, Mayor. So thank you, everyone. And now we have non-voting members that may be watching us via the internet. So if you would have the non-voting members introduce themselves. We'll start with Mr. Roberts. Okay, are we able to hear them? All right. Can you guys hear us? I see mute, but it's green. Let's see what we have here. If you are a non-voting member, we can read your names, but I would like to have you introduce yourself. But if we cannot work out the technology.
Yeah, Anthony's saying he can't hear anything.
Okay, he said he can't be heard. Okay.
We can hear you now.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So let's start with Mr. Roberts.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay. Could you tell who you represent as well at the same time, please? Anthony.
Yes, Anthony Roberts, Town Manager, Huntersville.
All right. Becky Hawk.
Yes, ma'am. Becky Hawk, Town Manager in Matthews.
Okay. Bill Thornburg.
Bill Thunberg, Mooresville Representative.
All right. Mr. Lathrop. I saw him on screen. Mr. Lathrop? All right, I do not.
I don't think he's able to respond.
Okay. All right, he's unmuting.
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Thank
you, Mayor Love.
All right, and Mr. Lathrop represents NCDOT. Who are the other? Ms. Gates?
Good afternoon, Randy Gates with the Gaston Cleveland Lincoln MPO in the city of Gastonia.
Okay. Mr. Michael? Michael?
Hey, Mayor, this is Michael Peoples, City Manager in Gastonia.
Okay. Mr. Stoll?
Yes, this is David Scholl representing Town of Stallings.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I believe that that's everyone. Is there anyone that we're missing by the Zoom calls or the internet? Okay. Well, thank you all for being here, and we really appreciate it. We do have our advisory board members, and we'd like to have them introduce themselves as well.
Jeff Parker. I am the currently the only chairman at CTAG.
And Chrissy Exlin, Chair of TSAC.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, before we begin with our first item, I'd like to recognize that we have two retiring members that will be recognized today. First being the mayor of Pineville, Jack Edwards, who has made a decision to have another kind of life.
Amen.
And chose not to represent them or to run for re-election this time. I have to say that Mayor Edwards has been so really helpful in representing the southern towns and the efforts that we have, and has always got a pragmatic point of view for us. And we wish you well, and we will miss you. But I know you can weigh in anytime because you do know how to use the internet to call in for us, okay? And then also Mayor Melinda Bales, who will have other opportunities to serve publicly, and we wish her very well. And thank the people of Huntersville for allowing her to represent them, especially in this effort as we try to build an adequate and successful public transportation system. There will be a gift in the mail, but if Mayor Edwards would like to say anything, I'd welcome that.
It's been a wonderful 10 years, and I've enjoyed everything. And it's not that I dislike my job. It's, I guess I dislike politics. And as we move through, I see more and more of it rather than sitting down and trying to work things through. So it was just sort of time. I retired from the military, retired from the corporate world, and now I'm retiring from being a servant of Town of Pineville. And I've loved it. I've loved the whole 10 years, but it's time. Everybody needs to understand when it's time to go and not overstay your welcome. So, and it's been great. Got to meet some really great people and work with them in Rusty and Woody and John Higdon and Lee and greatest town manager in the world right here. And it's been interesting, very interesting. So, and I wish everybody well. And I would like to say, don't allow this thing to die on the vine. Work it through together and keep attorneys out of it, and I think you'll be a lot better off.
Okay.
That's good advice.
Thank you for your advice.
Probably you're regretting you asked me, didn't you?
I would never say that, Jack.
That's okay.
So I do know that there will be big shoes for them both to be filled, but we're looking forward to the new representatives, and I believe that would take place in our January meeting. So moving forward, our next item for approval is our meeting minutes for the approval of the October 25th, 2023 meeting minute summary. The minutes are on page 42, 48 in the briefing book. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
And we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything that needs to be corrected or addressed? All right, Ms. Oxman.
I just noticed that on page 46 of the PDF, there were some minutes from the previous month that got pasted in, because I saw my name in there, and I wasn't at last month's meeting, so I knew that was not correct.
Okay.
I can send you an email with what's duplicated.
Thank you very much for that. So with that correction, the minutes will be approved with that correction for them. All in favor of adoption of the minutes, please raise your hands as a voting member. Okay. Is anyone in opposition? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, so.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I don't think it's controversial, but I think Mr. Lathrop has a vote Does he not have a vote? And if so, do we need to be hearing from him when we vote?
He does have a vote. I don't think he has an obligation
Yes.
to, but
Yeah, I just wanted,
Yes.
since he wasn't recognized as a voting member, I just wanted to loop him in fully. So thank you.
okay, thank you. So now do we have any items from our public comment? Mr. Paulus?
Nobody for public comment signed up now.
All right, thank you with that. So I want to say now we will have an update from our transit work group. Mr. Driggs chairs that along with Mr. Higdon, and so we'd like to hear from you the work that you've been doing since our last meeting.
Andrew, you want to go first?
Sure. Yesterday, we had the opportunity, those of us on the work group, to visit CATS on South Boulevard as well as Tryon Street locations, and Ed Driggs and I participated from the working group. Also in attendance were Emily Kuntz and Elizabeth Prasuti, along with Mr. Cagle. And it was a really excellent meeting. We spent about a little over 3 hours. We had the opportunity to meet with CATS employees and have them give unfiltered, uncensored responses to our questions about how things were going. And we asked them about a lot of the hot topic items like working in silos with the previous administration and not working together. Asked them about compensation, if they felt valued, if there were any issues. I had a very robust conversation for about an hour and enjoyed lunch with them. And overall, I would say that the general opinion shared was that things are much, much better now than they were under the previous administration. So went away from that feeling a lot better. Of course, there's always opportunities for improvement. Some of the things brought up, STS operator mentioned how physically taxing their work is. They have to not only drive the bus, but sometimes roll very heavy wheelchairs up ramps and things like that. And also, something I didn't realize is they often walk their passengers all the way to their door and carry whatever. If they go shopping, they carry their bags back and things like that. So it's a lot more than you might think. We also talked about crime and safety and all the things that we've done there. But again, overall, it was a very positive conversation. I did encourage the employees to contact us directly, the MTC, if they had issues going forward, and they said they would do that. We also got to tour the ROC, the control center that we've always heard about, so I thought that was really good. We hear all these terms, but to actually go there, it was kind of surprising. Neither Ed or myself had ever been to that facility. I've been an elected official for 10 years, and I think Ed about the same, so it's kind of unusual that we hadn't done that at this point. And we also got to go to the light rail and bus maintenance areas, and those of you that know me know that I've spent the majority of my career in manufacturing, and I was really impressed by how clean and orderly both of those facilities are. As someone who's rebuilt a transmission on a truck, I can tell you how quickly you can make a mess, and both of those garages were exceptionally clean and well ordered, and you could tell the employees had a lot of pride in working there. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens by good management, good leadership. And so I was very impressed with that. Some of the statistics that were mentioned is about a year ago, there were something like, I believe, Ed, 150 buses that were out of commission because they needed parts or to be repaired, and that's down to about 70 now, with a goal of about 40, no more than 40. So that's a very good metric that things are improving. But overall, it was a really great day. We had a lot of really good conversation, both with some of the union folks, non-union operators, management. And Ed, what else would you like to add?
That was a great report. I would add that the group of employees that we spoke to represented drivers, maintenance people, they were supervisors, so they were kind of a cross-section of the organization. And we urged them to be candid about situations that were still ongoing And there are some, but I think we've gotten back to the realm of kind of an ordinary operation with the ordinary problems that you encounter. So it felt to me like the crisis issues in the minds of the people we talked to had been addressed. And I agree with John. I was struck by the fact that in the context of a lot of what CATS has been through, the state of their facilities, the professionalism and the motivation of the people we talked to. We were taken on tours by some people who showed what they did with pride. One thing I think that came out was inventory management is something that it seemed to me they could modernize, that there might be scope for more investment in managing their supplies, trying to shorten those lead times for ordering parts. But they said that they've got long wait times from suppliers for some parts, and that they're constrained also by contracts that don't allow them to buy elsewhere when there's a wait time. So we were able to get down to a pretty good level of detail with them. And I came away like John, really impressed with the quality of the work that's being done there and the progress that we have made, even though we aren't done yet. I will say there was appreciation expressed for Brent, and I want to make sure that we stress that. I think we really turned a corner when Brent came in, and then you know, the other senior members that have joined since then. So the whole environment just feels like it's better than it was. We did also talk to a couple of people from RITP Dev who are actually in a management role, and they talked about some of the things they were doing. We didn't really get into the issue of the fact that they're going to be leaving soon. But overall, as I say, there is work still to be done, no question. And there are some things that we started that are ongoing, like the maintenance program with Siemens, but we were able to look at those trucks, the exact trucks, right, the one that came off and the other ones, and the work that was being done to put those heat strips on. So very informative session. I will say that based on having heard that, and because we did that, we have sort of finished the initial checklist of things that the working group set out to do. So we created a repository of documents so that everything, all the correspondence with NCDOT was available for inspection. We met for hours. A number of the combined working group members met for hours with the management consultants who had done the earlier work on CATS, and got their take on whether or not we were doing the right things to address the concerns that had been identified and whether they felt we were making good progress. I think we got positive feedback from them. And then one of the items that we had intended was that we would do these site visits, which we have now done. And I believe that if there were lurking serious issues involving personnel, that would have come out. It really felt to me like we were pretty exhaustive. I mean, we talked about compensation, safety, race relations. With that, I'm going to suggest to the working group that we not schedule automatic monthly meetings, but that we also not disband the group, because there are things still pending like the FTA report and so on. And Mr. Cagle would notify us of any occurrence or any emerging document or something like that that the group needed to look at. But in fact, most of the scheduled work that we talk about has been done, and therefore I think we will just we will meet kind of as needed in the future. So wanted to thank CATS. I think everybody really went out of their way to make us feel welcome and to show us everything. They were eager. I mean, we were having trouble keeping up with our schedule because they were so eager to talk about what they were doing and share it with us. It was a good experience. It's very good.
If I could add a couple more comments, because you tripped my memory a little bit. Regarding the trucks, that was, I ran into a buddy of mine that I've known for about 30 years. We worked together in a previous life, who is now a maintenance manager at CATS. And he went over everything that is perishable on a truck set and showed me what all they replace. And I think they're being super conservative. Even on the heat strips, they don't allow the heat to get above 130 degrees Fahrenheit, which is well below the recommendation of the manufacturer. So they're being very careful. The other comment I want to make is, I don't want to obligate CAT staff, but I really think everybody that's on the MTC should go visit this facility and have the same experience I did, so you can see it for yourself and not just take our word for it. But it was really eye-opening. And again, for me, sitting on this board for 4 or 5 years and to have never had that experience, we throw around all these acronyms and talk about different things that are being worked on, but to actually see them and touch them be there, it was really eye-opening, and it was a great experience. And I also want to thank CATS because we had a really good visit.
All right, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Altman?
Thank you. That sounds amazing, and I think it was ringing a bell, and I have on my calendar a CATS facility tour for November, late this month. Is that the same thing, Mr. Cagle, essentially?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, wonderful, I'm so glad.
And I will say, we're happy to extend that either on the same day or alternate days. I know everyone's schedules are busy, so we're happy to extend invitations and tours to any members, anyone who'd like to come. Our folks love to show off what they do. They're very proud of it. And I at the risk of, hopefully, there's no offense taken, but I think Mayor Higdon and Councilmember Driggs, I think they were like kids in a candy store down in that workshop. We had a little trouble keeping on schedule. It's pretty interesting stuff to see that, and they're really proud of showing it off. So we'd love to do that.
Yeah, I always find field trips really constructive, great use of time. Maybe I can induce Mayor-elect of Huntersville to come with me, since she'll be joining us shortly.
Would love to do that.
Okay.
What's
Perhaps
the date
staff
of
can
that?
ask her.
Why don't we send, Brent, why don't we send out another ask by email so that you can check yes or no and let us know? And that includes all of the town managers as well that are alternates, and, please feel free to, we'll send it out, and feel free to say yes and be able to get it done, so it would be good.
We'll send it out later today, tomorrow.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to ask about is, what is the status of the FTA, Mr. Cagle?
Yeah, so as you'll recall, the FMO, or Financial Management Review, started about 2 months ago. The FTA was it took them a little bit longer to select a special maintenance review consultant. They are on board. We have had the opening meeting with them over the last month, and they are now requesting and reviewing documents. It's our belief that they're going to merge the two so that the two reports come out together, and that they will be doing field work in January. And so we should expect initial results or draft report sometime in January to February range. But if that changes, or as they give us additional information, we'll certainly share that with you.
Thank you so much. Oh, and while we're saying how great staff is, I would like to publicly thank CAT staff, Jason Lawrence and Mr. Cagle, for meeting with me and Commissioner Powell regarding some concerns that she was hearing from her district. It was much appreciated, very detailed, and very, very productive, so thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments for the working group? I note that we have the site visit invitation open for everyone, and the working group will then begin the process of review as needed and required. Okay? Thank you very much, everyone. It takes a lot of work to make these tours possible, and we really appreciate the CATS team for doing that. So our next is up is our interim chief executive officer's report. So Mr. Cagle, you are, I'm sorry, Paulus, I had my mic off. All right, so the next is our interim chief executive officer's report. Mr. Cagle.
So just a couple other things to note. The work group, so as part of the work group, we started the risk analysis or risk review. That work has started. We have been conducting, the consultant has been conducting the pre-work interviewing staff. And then they will start to work to narrow in on on the risk matrix based on those risks that they've identified. So we will also provide updates on that work as they come forward. And I would say it's probably, an initial update in the next 60 days or so as we work through that with them. Second item of note, pages 6 through 49 of your packet are information requested at the last meeting. It is the UNC Charlotte Citizens Transit Advisory Group Governance Review study, and then there are minutes from the County Commission meeting that discussed some changes in the interlocal. And so 6 through 49 is the background information. Jumping over to page 53, our monthly safety statistics. Again, you're familiar with these. Bus Operations Division, again, standard reporting. And I will pause for questions. Otherwise, I will move through these. First is Bus Operations Division. Second is the Special Transportation Services on page 55. Oops. The third is our Rail Operations Blue Line, starting on page 57. And then moving into finally our Rail Operations Division Gold Line on page 59. Starting on page 61, we have ridership information. I'm going to jump all the way over to page 66, which is a summary of all the ridership information tables. And what page 66 says is that ridership continues to be up. Total ridership was up about 7.5% in October 2023 compared to October 2022. Ridership was up in all areas except Gold Line, where we saw a decrease October to October. Again, the Gold Line, I believe that trend, right now the Gold Line headways because of staffing, that trend will probably continue, ridership being down, because a year ago the headways were approximately 20 minutes and today they are approximately 30 minutes. So until we can correct that, and we do intend to do that, I think that trend on the Gold Line will continue. And then missed trips we did very well last month, and that they were under 2%, just about 1.5% on missed trips for the month. With that, I'll pause for any questions.
Brent, I would also like to add that this Monday, the Charlotte City Council approved a change in the access to quality of life, programs. So, and one of those would be the Gold Line, where we went from a $25 ticket to blocking the Gold Line ability to move along the corridor to $100. Being able to, if you're blocking the ability for the train to move or the streetcar to move, the fee was something that would be, at least I think, would cause you to have some attention to it. We're going to try it out for a short period of time, get a report back, and see what implications that would have, because it's not just the Gold Line, but it's, bicycle trails and things like that we're trying to make sure that we maintain more safely, and to make the experience of what we're trying to do with the ridership at the Gold Line possible to reduce those headways in some respects. So,
yes.
Any questions for Brent on his report?
The only one.
Anyone?
I do, thank you. So, Mr. Cagle, with the CATS BOD fatalities, I missed this was there a fatality in September? And were we aware of that? And what was it?
So the most recent month reporting is October. I will get back to you on September exactly what it is. The October was a motorcyclist, someone riding a motorcycle, ran a red light and ran into the side of a bus.
Oh, I see. So it, all
And
right.
so that was a fatality involving a CATS vehicle.
Right, even if the CATS vehicle is the receiving end of a traffic
Correct.
violation.
The operator was making a turn. They were turning with the light. They had the light. A motorcyclist was trying to beat the light and unfortunately ran broadside into the bus.
Sending condolences to the family. That's horrible.
Yeah.
The major reportable injuries for October were 11. Can you speak to what those are as a category, or are they all?
Yes, I'll get you the exact detail. Usually when you see a number like that, it's a major accident on one vehicle that was full. That may have been, let me get you the exact, but you'll recall there was some video out recently where a pickup truck ran directly into the back of a bus. They were going very fast and they changed lanes and literally just slammed into the back of a bus. That bus had many occupants on it, and none of those injuries were severe, but there were injuries. And so usually when you see a number like that, like 11 or 13, what that indicates is that a bus with many passengers on board was involved in a traffic accident.
Thank you.
But I will get the exact one I'll get the exact circumstance on that one.
Thank you, sir. And then the graph with system reliability, it looks like, the goal is less than 3 per 100,000 miles. And last month is higher than it's been since April. So just wanted to get any comment or thought you have about that.
On the bus operations?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so on bus operations and STS, both of those, that metric, system reliability, what that means is when a bus is in service and breaks down and has to be taken out of service while it's en route, and you can see we do not meet that metric in either STS or bus very often. Quite frankly, it's more lucky when we do. It's the norm that we do not. And that is a direct reflection of the age of the fleet. And so to respond to that, we have very significant purchases on both STS and the BOD fleet. I'll also interject, I think Mayor Higdon mentioned that our STS drivers work very hard, and they do have a very hard job. And we agree with that. One of the things that they identified when I started, when we talked to them about what are some things that would make your job easier, the bane of their existence are STS vehicles with ramps. They much prefer a lift because a ramp, you got to push someone up the ramp. And right now, about half of our fleet has ramps, about half of our fleet has lifts. All of our fleet will have lifts with the new vehicles.
Okay, so you would probably characterize this as a function of age?
Yeah, so yes, the system reliability on BOD and STS is clearly a function of age of vehicles. They're all overdue. STS vehicles are all overdue for replacement, and the bus fleet is definitely not where we would want it
Useful.
to be. Yeah.
Okay, and then major system reliability, major mechanical failures, it looks like a high metric for September. I guess, do you have any thoughts about that, or can you comment on that?
Major, where are we at?
Major mechanical failures, looking for less than 3 per 100,000 revenue car miles.
For
Light rail.
BOD as well?
I think this is light rail.
Oh, for light rail. Okay, yes, the blue line. Let me check into that metric. That we had 8 reported, so let me check into that metric, which did put us over the goal, and let me get you some more information on that
Sir.
metric.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other questions? All right. So that takes us past the interim CEO report. And now we'll go to any information. We don't have any informational items, so we'll move to our action items. So who's up next for that? Is it Ms. Goforth?
Yes, ma'am, we have the Independence Busway update, so I will provide this. We do not have a presentation on this. Ms. Goforth is, unfortunately, was not able to be here today, so I'm going to step in for her. We wanted to bring this forward to you. You may recall about 2 months ago, well, CATS has supported the Independence Busway project that we would help fund with NCDOT. About 2 months in the original budget on that project, set several years ago, was inadequate. About 2 months ago, we came back and we said that NCDOT believed that due to cost escalations and inflation, that the original budget would be inadequate, and we informed the MTC of that. And at the time, we informed the MTC that NCDOT's estimate was approximately $1.3 million of CAT's contribution to reopen or convert the Independence Busway and make it usable. NCDOT has done they've done their RFP, and they have final proposals, and the project ended up, it's going to cost more than the $1.3 million. It will now, based on their bids, cost CATS $1.7 million, so an additional $400,000 from where we had thought it was. We still support the project. However, we do need, we're requesting support from the MTC, and then we would need to move forward to City Council for a budget ordinance to increase our budget appropriation for the year. If there is support from the MTC on this project change, cost change, we will go to City Council on November 27th and seek their support for a budget ordinance or change to our budget.
Mr. Cagle, would you describe the route and what it does actually? I know it's an increase in the cost, but actually describe what it accomplishes and from where to where.
Yeah, so the Independence Busway, I'll look to Jason Lawrence to give you all of the details, but generally speaking, the Independence Busway, what it does, what this project will do is give us early access to a dedicated lane out Independence. The lane is closed. It's just not operable right now. Ultimately, that lane will be converted to I think the state calls them managed lanes, a managed lane. And the buses will have access to the managed lane when it is. But that project is quite a few years out on their project horizon.
That might be an understatement, Mr. Cagle.
Yes. So it's a little bit out on the project horizon. And so by doing this project now, it gives us access to that lane as a dedicated bus lane in advance of the NCDOT managed lane project. We do believe that this will significantly reduce or benefit the passenger by reducing running time. And it will, and we would intend to market the route and the changes to show the benefits to the rider so that as it transitions into managed lane, that
benefit is still realized. Jason, can you tell us from where to where?
Yeah, sure. So, see if you can hear. So five bus routes serve that corridor too, from the Mint Hill area, Lawyers Road and Harrisburg Road, coming off of Albemarle Road. There's a route from Matthews. There's a park and ride that we constructed right off of Sam Newell, and there's Idlewild Road route as well. And then, of course, the 74X that goes to Union County with the stop and stallings. Those 5 routes, all will use the busway from roughly Sharon Forest Drive to just west of Hawthorne Lane and near downtown Charlotte.
Any other questions in
Yes.
regards to this?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So for historic reference, what was in this, wasn't this lane designed for buses at one time? Jason?
Yeah,
Trash collection.
probably late 90s. There was a busway demonstration project along that corridor. And at the time, the concept was to extend that throughout all of Highway 74 all the way to Matthews, but the initial segment was roughly from Hawthorne to just west of Eastway.
Yes, it was
Yes.
a long time in planning and working, and finally, and it does cost, the increase in the cost, I think will be of benefit to the people that are going to be served. I think that it's just a requirement almost for those folks to have adequate bus traffic on Independence Boulevard. Many of us have lived here long enough to watch the lane with no buses in it. This will allow us to have actual bus traffic. So, Mayor Higdon?
I just want to make comment that it's probably the single question I get asked most often as a member of MTC is, why is this not open for buses? So it's...
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We want it open for buses.
The public wants it very, very badly.
Yes.
So I think that one of the things that we have to do is there a motion to amend the FY 2024 capital investment plan to add $950,000 to the Independence Busway Restoration Project based on actual bids this time instead of an estimate. So do I have a motion? So moved. Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand of the voting members. So I believe, is there any opposition? Hearing none, that motion passes unanimously. So the next item is the February 2024 service change and Title VI analysis, which Mr. Jones is going to present. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So Bruce Jones here, Manager of Service Planning. I presented to you all before in my previous role as a planner in our service planning group, where I presented the Envision My Ride bus priority study changes. So happy to be in my new role now as a service planning manager. And I want to come before you today to share with you some of the changes that we have proposed for the February service change. And while he pulls that up, so I just wanted to start by saying, in terms of where we are from an operational standpoint, in order for us to make changes, just given our resources with operators, we have to take resources from our existing service areas. So essentially, we're moving resources from one route to accommodate changes for another route. And so once you'll see in the changes that we have proposed for February, they came directly from requests for specific routes. So there we go. So with Route 57 in particular and Route 235, we had a number of requests come from different members from the organization, from the community rather. And so with that, you can go to the next one, Paulus. So with that, we had two specific requests come along both routes. One was from the McLeod Center, which is a service that provides important treatment resources for individuals. Go to the previous one. And so with that service, they were previously located on Clanton Road, but recently relocated to Archdale Drive. And so now they're on Route 57. And to give you a little bit of background for that route, so we currently provide hourly service Monday through Saturday with no service on Sundays. And then service currently ends just before 8 p.m., about roughly 8:35 to 8:45 in that time span. And before I jump into these, apologies too, we did send this out last week as an information item via email. And so it contains this presentation as well as the different additional information for you. And so today I'll just provide you with a summary of the findings from our public engagement and our recommendations before we present it to you for vote for action. In addition to that, so with Route 235, we had some additional requests. So similar in nature, that route only operates Monday through Saturday. Currently it ends just before 9:30 on weeknights, and then on Saturdays it ends before 4 p.m. So we had a number of requests come specifically from CMS on how we can connect individuals from the Philip O'Berry campus over to the CPCC campus for some programming that they provide for high school students. In addition to that, individuals have requested later connections to the Walmart on Wilkinson, and then also weekend connections as well. And then also a direct connection over to the Valerie Woodard Center and the county services that they provide, as well as additional retail and businesses along that corridor. You can go to the next one. And so while we're looking at the routes, we thought that this would be a good opportunity for us to address another issue that we're facing along both routes. So currently we have reliability challenges from an on-time performance standpoint. So our target system-wide is 85%, and so we want trips to be on time 85% or greater, of course. Right now, both routes fall below that threshold. And so you see with the 57, we currently average around 55% in terms of on-time performance. And one of the challenges, of course, with that being an hour wait for individuals, if it's late, then that means that they have to wait over an hour sometimes for the bus to come. So it's definitely something that we want to address and improve for customers. In addition to that, Route 235 currently has an on-time performance rate of about 75%. So a little better, but still well below our threshold. So we want to definitely work to improve both of those metrics. So traffic, of course, is probably the biggest culprit for on-time performance issues, but we do have some additional challenges that we're working to address. One being the challenge with the signal timing near the Archdale station for Route 57 with the queue jump that they have there. So we'll be working with CDOT to see if we can investigate and see if we can improve that for operators too as they come in and out of the station area. In addition to that, the 235 currently travels along Seymour Drive where we have an at-grade rail crossing. One of the challenges there is that individuals, the buses, when they're traveling along that corridor, sometimes the train will stall on the tracks. And so a lot of times what happens is the bus would have to call a supervisor. The supervisor has to come out and then direct them, back them up so they can go and detour around the train. So that presents additional challenges that we face along that stretch. And so given where we are with some of the reliability challenges and the service requests, we have a couple of recommendations for both routes that we presented to the public. And you go to the next one. And so I'll start with the 57. And so this map just shows you the current routing in red. I'm sorry, the current routing in red, but then also that segment in black is what the current route does. And so it travels from the South Park Transit Center over to the Lynx Archdale Station, and then eventually down to the Forest Park or Forest Point Business Park. So what we're proposing to do with the Route 57 is increase service. So we'll have later service on weeknights after 9 p.m. to better accommodate needs with the McLeod Center. And then also proposing to extend service to Sundays as well so that we'll match what we provide on Saturdays so we can have a consistent service on weekends for individuals riding that route. In addition to that, to help us try to improve the on-time performance, we are recommending a slight modification to the route. And so we're proposing to eliminate the segment that goes to the Forest Point Business Park. And so that's just south of Arrowwood Road. This segment was decided to eliminate because low ridership overall. So right now it accounts for about 5% of the route's total ridership. In addition to that, we're hoping that with the loop, given our runtime estimates, we're hoping that that will help improve that reliability issue that we're facing along this route. For individuals within the business park, we are working with them to identify alternative modes, particularly looking at how we can supplement it with van pool service. And then I will say, too, that they'll still be within the STS boundary, which is about 3/4 of a mile from the bus stop that you see there. So they'll still have coverage through that mode as well. Go to the next one. And so with the 235, so similar to the 57, we are proposing to extend service to after 9 p.m. on weeknights. And then in addition to that, looking at how we can also implement service after 4 p.m. on Saturdays, and then also new service on Sundays. And I'll say here, so you can see the black line on the maps represent what the current routing is for 235. And in order for us to make the changes, we had to make modifications to Route 235 so that we can shift resources to the 57 and then also accommodate extended service on Route 235 as well. And so what we did is we presented two options to the public. So currently what you see up top is option A that we presented, which will provide connections from the Renaissance West community off of Billy Graham and West Boulevard over to the Wilkinson Walmart and then eventually up to the Valerie Woodard Center off of Ashley and Freedom. And with that scenario, that provides that direct connection to Philip O'Berry for CMS, for students to get over to the CPCC campus as well. And so we're proposing with that route to increase frequency as well, or decrease, excuse me. So we're proposing to go from a 40-minute headway to a 50-minute headway. And the reason for that is we wanted to make sure that we have service that is reliable. So our fear was if we keep it at the 40-minute headway, then that doesn't address the current on-time performance challenges. And so we want to make sure that we're implementing service on day one that is reliable for customers. And so that would require a slight increase in terms of overall frequency to 50 minutes in that scenario. Similar for option B, we presented that with 45-minute service. That's a similar route. The only difference is instead of it connecting up to the Valerie Woodard Center, it would end at the Wilkinson Walmart off of Ashley and Wilkinson. You can go to the next one. And so based on our Title VI policy, we take a look at any changes that we're proposing to identify if it's considered a major service change. And so what we want to do is we want to see if any of the changes are having a disparate impact on minority or low-income communities. And so our thresholds for how we determine what a major service change is anything that impacts greater than 25% of the overall ridership or mileage along the routes. So revenue miles or revenue hours, excuse me, not ridership. Revenue miles or revenue hours is what we look at for that threshold. And so anything that's above 25% triggers a major service change. In this case, the change to the 57 does not trigger a major service change, but the change to the 235 would qualify as a major service change. We're following the Title VI process for both routing proposals just because we are including them as a package. And so what you see here in the bullets are the process that we're following for the Title VI process. And so that includes an assessment of the effects of the proposed service change on minority and low-income communities, as I mentioned. It also includes an analysis of information that we collected through our public engagement process, which I'll go to in the next slide. And then also demographically mapping the service area or planning area and identifying census tracts that have a higher percentage of minority or low-income populations compared to our average system-wide. So any census tract that is at or above the threshold that we have system-wide, we consider those to be minority or low-income tracts. We do an assessment of the available service alternatives, so looking at additional routes or other opportunities for individuals to supplement the changes. And then also determining if it's a disparate or disproportionate impact that would preclude organizations from implementing the service change. And then also a description of measures, if necessary, to avoid, minimize, or mitigate the negative impacts of the proposed service change. And so we followed that process for this proposed change, and I'll go through that in the next couple of slides. You go to the next one. So we did outreach throughout the month of October. We had virtual and also in-person meetings that we held with the community. And so we were at the West Boulevard Library on the 10th of October, and then also a pop-up at the Lynx Archdale Station on October 17th. We also did a virtual meeting on October 11th, and that was streamed through our YouTube channels. And so individuals still have access to that meeting if they would like to stream that to learn more information about the changes. We also presented to our TSAC board on October 12th, and then did a follow-up presentation last Thursday to present the recommendations and get their endorsement as well. In addition to that, we partnered with a number of other organizations. So with the Corridors Connect in particular, we reached out and partnered with them. So we participated in 2 events that they had on the 22nd that targeted the areas that we're focused on for Route 235. And so that includes the Freedom Drive area, and then also the West Boulevard area. In addition to that, we sent out communications to our community partners within the area, including the West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition, the McLeod Center, CPCC, CMS, and Valerie Woodard Center, just to name a few. And so overall, we engaged over 100 community members throughout that process. We also, you can go to the next one. We also had a public survey that we also put out for individuals to provide feedback. And so what we did is we tagged 115 stops along routes 57 and 235 to encourage individuals to complete the survey to share their input on the proposed changes and also learn more about the changes as well. In addition to that, we promoted, of course, through our social media channels, Riders Alert. We put ads in the newspaper and other resources as well so that we can get the message out to community members. So in total, we received just under 50 responses. And just to kind of give you an overview of what we heard from the survey, so 76% of individuals that completed the survey agreed that increased service would, of course, benefit their overall commute. 28% of individuals surveyed said that they frequently travel to the Forest Point Business Park. Excuse the typo for that. And so, of course, as I mentioned, we'll continue to work with businesses in that area to identify alternative commutes, looking at van pool as a potential solution, and then also other modes as well. So 74% of respondents were in favor of option A when they chose between the two scenarios for their 235. And so using that, we use that recommendation to move forward with our decision for Route 235 and 57. And you go to the next slide. Looking at the findings, so I mentioned that we want to check and see if the impacts will have a disparate impact on low-income or minority communities. And so we did the Title VI analysis. We found that with the changes to the 235, because of the close proximity of existing bus routes, there wouldn't be a disparate impact. And so in particular, service to the West Boulevard corridor, particularly the library, would still be covered by Route 10. That also connects over to the Renaissance West community. In addition to that, service to the Goodwill campus will still be maintained by the Sprinter route. And then we also have a number of routes along the Ashley Road corridor. That segment that you see there with that large loop, we actually only have 2 active bus stops currently. One would be on Executive Drive, which is that stop on the northern portion of that segment, and then also over at the Goodwill campus. So the portion on Executive Drive, although we are taking service from that, it's a 0.5-mile walk, I believe, to the nearest bus route. But similarly, we will be working with organizations in that business park to identify how we can offer maybe alternative commutes or alternative means of service for those individuals. And I'll say, too, that looking at the ridership for the overall changes, this impacted just under 4% of the total route ridership with the changes that we're proposing to Route 235. So we're really beefing up the strongest portions of the routes by adding later service and then also Sunday service as well. You can go to the next one. And so what I'll present to you today for action is approval of the following changes based on the Title VI analysis and then also the public input process. So we are proposing to extend service on weeknights after 9 p.m. for Route 57, adding new service on Sundays as well. We're proposing to eliminate the service to the Forest Point Business Park. In addition to that, for Route 235, we're proposing to extend service on weeknights after 9:30, extend service on Saturdays after 4:30, and then also similarly adding new service on Sundays as well to match the Saturday schedule. In addition to that, we are proposing to eliminate service to the Goodwill campus along this route, Seymour Drive, Scott Futrell Drive, and West Boulevard between Oatstill Creek Road and Clanton Road. And I do want to reiterate that portions of the eliminated service will be maintained through other bus routes that operate in close proximity. And then specifically for Seymour Drive, the segment that had the greatest ridership, it'll be less than a quarter mile for individuals to walk out to Oatstill Creek Road to still access the route. And so with that, we will open it up for questions. And
Any questions for Mr. Jones? We'll start with Mayor Higdon, followed by Mayor Bales.
Is there any plan to attempt to reestablish the interval of service? I'm concerned that we just keep extending the interval of service to make it more reliable. If you take it to the extreme, we could go twice a day and guarantee that we're always there on time. But I think at some point we're really hurting the usefulness of the route if they're so far apart.
yeah, absolutely. I think the goal that we're working on currently is, of course, getting our operator pool back up. And so once we get that in a good place, we'll start addressing some of the areas that we had to make cuts to. I think in particular, we'll start focusing on how we can improve on-time performance throughout the network. And then as we begin to go in future phases, we'll start to look at how we can restore frequency levels. But we're currently actively working towards getting that pool up. And of course, we can share more detail at a later date once we have more information on that.
Great, thank you.
We will also be doing a running time analysis, which goes to that question as well. We haven't done a running time analysis in many years, and we strongly suspect or know that some of our routes are very difficult to serve because they're just simply too long. And so that will be combined as part of the work effort too.
Mayor Bales?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions in regards to Forest Point Business Park. What type of businesses currently reside in Forest Point?
So there's a mixture. I know Spectrum has a call center there. I think there's a couple of other logistics companies over there as well. We did attempt to engage Spectrum. It was failed. Of course, we'll continue to reach out to them, but when we did initial outreach, they informed us that no one uses the route, so it wouldn't impact them, even though we tried to give them information. But we'll continue to, of course, engage them and work with them.
So
But,
Spectrum's the largest employer?
they're one of the more recent employers, and then there's other businesses there. But just looking at the ridership and the survey results, we got a number of individuals that said that they traveled to Spectrum, which conflicts with what they said. But of course, we'll continue to try to engage them to see how we can mitigate that.
And with these modifications to the route, how far is that last stop closest to the park? From the
It's
park?
about a 0.5 mile walk from the furthest stop.
On,
Within the business park, yeah, for the current routing. To get to the closest stop, which is just north of Arrowwood, it'll be about a 0.5 mile walk.
okay. And I think you answered one of my questions I had written down here. And if you're having conversations with those businesses in there, I would highly encourage conversation around any shift change in their schedules, which may be an impact to the ridership. I see that in Commerce Station in Huntersville, where the shifts have modified and then it doesn't work for those employees. I would just hate to see individuals not being able to access employment and lose their jobs because they're not able to get there.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
All right. Mayor Knox?
So, a couple questions. I know that a couple of the drivers we have are frequency and reliability when we're talking about public transit. And looking at Route 57, where you're currently showing a 55% performance rate, you've cut out the Forest Point Business Park. Do you have a projection for where that performance rate will go? Because it looks like you cut off maybe a half mile of the route, and that's it. Is that going to increase that 55% performance rate exponentially, or is it just going to tick up a little bit? Because it doesn't look like a lot of footprint was changed on that versus the 235.
Yeah, it's a small footprint, but given conditions, so when you look at, we, for instance, go down there, we circulate, sometimes we get stuck at that light before we cross back over Arrowwood. So little factors like that can add up in terms of adding time to the route. It is a small change, and of course, we'll continue to monitor it. Looking at our current estimates, we're showing that it will improve it, but of course, real-world estimates versus computer-generated estimates are another thing, so we'll have to do a continued evaluation of that. I think the 57 as a whole is a route that we're also looking at structurally to see how we can maybe realign service to South Park. So there's other things that we're considering with that route as well. I think that this is one of the first stages in how we improve service along that.
I was less worried about the 235 because you're already at a 75% performance rate. So any modification could see an uptick to where you'd like to be at the 85%. But I just, I was concerned about that small modification on the 57, if that would, because again, 55% performance rate is not where we want to be.
Yeah, definitely not. And also, we'll continue to work. I know that we're rolling out signal priority throughout our network, and so we'll work with CDOT to determine where we are with that. That can be another factor that could help us improve overall time. But I think with this change, of course, we'll continue to monitor and see if there's anything additional that we'll have to do.
Awesome. Thank you for the presentation, too.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? So I think that what you heard is we need to go into the business park and do a little bit more due diligence, not just with one of the businesses, but multiple ones, and as well the assessment. And perhaps, I don't know when we come back on these, but, at some point you need to know whether it's successful and whether or not it was doing this. But I do have to say that the idea of many of the social services that are provided by the county, reentry, drug and treatment things that, and the ability to get to the centers that the county has. Those are important areas. I know that I've heard somewhere in that the West Boulevard corridor needs ability to get to the Walmart. Right now, they're working, a lot of seniors are there, and they're pushing the carts, or they're taking a taxi, and that is very expensive compared to what we have now. And so I hope that we are going to continue to review the change as it goes by. I don't know if there's a standard for, like, put something in place, wait 6 weeks or 6 months, but I think it's worth having something that we can determine, did it work or did it accomplish the objectives that we wanted to have?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Now, I will point out that, so this is for, we change schedule at designated times each year. February is one of those times, so this is a designated February change. If the MTC chooses to wait until January, which is the next scheduled meeting, it will leave us only a matter of weeks to make these changes or implement these changes, but we certainly can do that. And again, if the changes are made, we can continue to monitor, like we would any routes, to see did they have the desired effects and those kinds of things. I will say the 57, I believe the 57 is the McLeod Center. Yeah. And so the McLeod Center is one of those where the folks receiving service at that center need those services 7 days a week and during extended hours. And so that is, that was a primary driver when we became aware that the center was now, because of their new location, was not as accessible for transit.
I'm glad that you're actually reacting to something that they've done, because they needed the expansion, but at the same time, we're including service and transportation as for their clients as well in this change.
Mr. Cagle, I'm assuming we're going to approve this, but monitoring this, when can you report back and say, hey, we're doing better? I mean, is this something that you're going to look at quarterly, or?
Yeah, we certainly can. Once implemented, we can certainly look at it. I mean, we can look at it daily. Yeah. Daily doesn't make a trend, but I would suggest maybe we do it quarterly. The other thing is, we're happy to talk more about all of the routes, right? I mean, these two were suggesting changes, but like I said, the runtime analysis, all of these things, there are other routes that we have in the system that we need to reevaluate as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions? So I would like to take, is there a motion to move forward with the changes as recommended for routes 57 and 335 in February of 2024? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. We've had any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hands. And that believes that motion passes, and so keep going and keep us informed. Thank you very much, Mr.
Definitely.
Jones.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Okay. All right, now, the next item on our agenda is we'll hear from our Transit Services Advisory Committee. I believe Ms. Echelon is going to provide the report tonight, this afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor Lyles, and members of the MTC. In our TSAC meeting earlier this month, we approved the proposed changes that you just approved for the service changes. In every TSAC meeting, we have a service issues section where we bring problems we've been having, like a bus shelter that's damaged, or a bus that's consistently late or overcrowded, or just anything that people bring to our attention. So we had a lot of discussion this month about some issues with the CATS app. There's a lag between what the app says, like when the bus is coming, versus the map on the app where it shows where the actual bus is. Sometimes those say two different things. We've heard since then that they're working on that, so that's encouraging. CATS is also working on a better way to get our input, like some sort of a more real-time, whether it's something in the app or a way, like if we're on a bus and there's a problem, we don't have to wait till the next TSAC meeting or have a big circle of emails where we can submit it right then. And going back to what Mayor Lyles mentioned about the fines going from $25 to $100 for blocking the Gold Line, that has been something I think we didn't vote on that as a body, but cars blocking the Gold Line is something that's come up in TSAC meetings for years. So I think it's probably safe for me to say that members of TSAC are very happy to see that. But one thing that did come up in our last or 2 meetings ago was that we would love to see that also apply to bus stops, because when cars park in a bus stop, the bus has to wait for them to move. It can impede folks with mobility issues if there's not a safe place for the bus to, extend the ramp or the lift. So we'd love to see that fine. I think that's something that probably many TSAC members would support, is if that also applied to bus stops.
And that was discussed, it was in our session when we approved it for the areas that we have now, but it is on the top of the list for the next round of quality of life changes.
Great, that's awesome. And then finally, this is not just my last MTC meeting as TSAC chair. I'm also just stepping down from TSAC in January to move away for a year. I appreciate having had this opportunity to advocate for transit riders. Charlotte has an ambitious mode share goal of getting down to only 50% single occupancy vehicle commutes. That's a very steep hill to climb. But I know there are so many people like myself in Charlotte who know that the only way to accommodate the region's growth is not by building more roads, but to get more people on buses, trains, and bikes, and out of their cars. So I encourage the future chairs of CTAG and TSAC to keep making noise and advocating for public transit. And as part of the ongoing discussion about how to govern transit in the region, a future MTC, whatever that might look like, should give a vote to the citizens who ride transit and sit at this table. My last comment is just that I think that CATS is finally heading in the right direction, and just keep it up with the focus on customer experience that we've really been seeing strongly recently, and to just add more bus and train frequency by getting more operators. Frequency is freedom, and frequent service will bring in more riders. Thank you again for this opportunity to serve on TSAC and for your time tonight.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you very much for the time that you spent. I think you may be the longest-term mayor, chair. It feels like being mayor, I guess, some days, doesn't it? But I want to say thank you very much for what you've done, and your participation has added valuable experience and reality to what we do in this world every day. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Higdon?
Yeah, I just had a quick comment based on something you said. When I drove back to my home in Matthews yesterday from Katz over on South Boulevard, I passed about, 12 or 15 schools as the schools were letting out. And you talk about single occupancy cars. I mean, we have whole roads being shut down with 500 parents picking up their kids all at once with one parent in each car. That's got to be a huge opportunity for improvement, or working with PTAs or something, if they could carpool or maybe ride the bus. But it's really frustrating. It's twice a day. It happens in Matthews, I think, in all of our communities, where we have these massive lines of hundreds of cars of, one parent in each car picking their child up from school. And that's maybe an opportunity for us to look at.
Davidson. Mm-hmm.
I think all of us understand that experience. Mine is the favorite, where they idle the car sitting in the carpool line. They don't even turn off the ignition. So it's an interesting, it's kind of America, I guess, American to do that. I also wanted to say, Mayor Bales, before you came in, I just wanted to say thank you for the service that you've given to this effort. You have been tremendously helpful and led the way for Huntersville to have a great voice. So thank you very much. And there will be a gift in the mail at some point, so we'll get that to you as well. But you and Mayor Edwards, if you'd like to say anything, we welcome that.
Thank you very much. I have thoroughly enjoyed, almost surprisingly so, I have enjoyed working with the MTC and with staff with CATS. I appreciate the diligence and the effort that you put in each and every day, so thank you for that. I hope that I can continue to be an advocate and work with everyone and move our transit goals and dreams forward for our region. And so with that, I would just say thank you for allowing me a seat at the table, and I've enjoyed working with each and every one of you.
Thank you very much. So now, let's go to Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker, do you have a report for us?
Thank you, Mayor Lyles, members of the commission. I do not have much of a report to offer since this is my second MTC meeting since my last CTAG meeting. Hopefully at my next meeting, I will be able to provide a report. I did want to provide a little bit of input on the Independence Busway project. I know it's a little bit late for that. But I am a rider of the 40X and the 46X, and I can tell you without hesitation, reopening the busway would be a monumental improvement. Night and day, I imagine, depending on the day, it would save between 5 and 15 minutes per trip. So that would be a much-needed improvement. And with that,
Thank you very much for your service, and we really do need people to report how it works. I don't know when NCDOT actually will get it accomplished, but we will all have our fingers crossed sooner than later. So with that, I think that this concludes our meeting. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We will, and second, and all in favor, yes.
Yep.
Thank you for everyone, and you guys have a great Thanksgiving. We'll see our new members coming in January. Okay, thank you.
January. All right, thank you.